man, so Bitcoin is holding on for $40,000. We've got FANTOM sitting at $1.11. What is going on? This week was so promising. We had two horrible weeks in crypto, followed by a strong, what appeared to be green week here on crypto. But as we sit here on a Saturday, the Fed official Jerome Powell throwing us under the bus the other day, and ultimately the red candlestick of this week is looming. It's fighting right now. It's a crazy candle. We're going to take a look at that. We're going to look at the key levels in crypto, and then we're going to discuss whether Bitcoin is going to continue to follow the stock markets for the rest of this year, and what implications could that have, or could we be seeing a decoupling happening, which is where Bitcoin decides to not treat itself as a risk on asset and can instead free its shackles, ready for a run to the upside. We're going to cover that and a lot more. So make sure you hit up the like button. Make sure you subscribe. Don't forget, these videos are brought to you by our very own course member live streams. Yes, 3 weekly live streams where you guys can jump onto a members only live stream with me, ask me questions around tokenomics, technical analysis, fundamental analysis, macroeconomics, and we can cover it all in those live sessions, so you know exactly what moves I'm making in the market. Guys, let's get straight into the Bitcoin chart. And as you can see, I'm sat here looking here while we're sat here on a Saturday at the weekly chart, and I was just thinking, we've had 3 red candles. So this candle started it wasn't too bad, and then we had this red candlestick, and then last week we had this one sending us quite low down to 39,246. This candlestick today, this weekly candle, which has just tomorrow remaining now, has been a roller coaster, right? We opened up around 39,700. We ran to some crazy highs, and then we got sent all the way back down again after getting rejected. So the question now remains, what's going to happen? Because we know that on the downside, we've got some room to play with, right? The lower low comes all the way down here at 32,900. So we've got some room to the downside. We've kept our upward trend because we didn't even use the low from this level, which is 34,000. So we're higher than this low. We're higher than the 34,000 low. This is good, right? Our low here was 38,000. That's good. We can keep our upward trend. But what's stopping us from doing what I've drawn here? Why can we not start rallying to the top of the channel, create our higher high above the previous high of 69,000, where we were knocking on the doors of 70,000? And the answer is very straightforward. We know that we've been tracking the stock market. If we head into the stock market and I click on the NASDAQ, which is the view, you can see these are the red candlesticks that are performing it. And yes, crypto's been holding up a little bit better, but the correlation is so. If the NASDAQ and high growth stocks have the permission to move to the green, Bitcoin will be allowed to move to the green. If NASDAQ is having a red day, then Bitcoin is really going to struggle to hold up. It won't bleed as quickly as the NASDAQ, but it is not allowing it to move to the upside. Now, what has happened? What has Jerome Powell done? Why is the market all spooked? Well, basically, Jerome Powell came out and he said that he wants to front load the interest rate hikes. Okay, so what he's saying is, if our target rate hike is the 2.2 to 2.8 kind of range over the next year and a half, why don't we front load them? In essence, what he's saying he's a fan of just getting it done outright. So what that means is, instead of the gradual 0.25 with a couple of 0.5 sprinkled in, there's an argument to say he's just going to go 0.5 straight out the gate. And that is what's spooking markets. If you head over to the Fed rate monitor tool and give it a little refresh to make sure we're getting the latest percentages, you can see here 100% has now priced in a double rate hike, right? That we're expecting that's going to come. And then you've got the for the next meetings, June the 15th, where currently a single rate hike is priced in, but this will update more as and when we get closer to the date. But what's important now is, will we see 0.5 and another 0.5, which straight away by June time will put us at 1.25% in interest rate hike? That's what the market is now trying to ponder, and that's what they're pricing in. So the downtick you've seen in the NASDAQ and the downtick, therefore, in crypto is exactly that. The market wants to price in that 0.5 and maybe even 0.5 in June is happening, and we need to be prepared for that. Okay, so the NASDAQ has priced it in. And obviously, when you go risk off, Bitcoin is treated as a growth stock in essence. So no different to how a high growth tech stock is treated. Bitcoin is treated like that, and that's why we're seeing Bitcoin struggle now. Now, what are we looking at here? Well, if we head on to our daily chart on Bitcoin, you can see that our key level holding us up at the moment is 39,185. It looks like we may come back down to test 39,185. Hopefully we get some support coming in from there. We can start working our way back up to this wedge level. If we can create a W pattern, that is kind of your way out of this kind of scenario where you create a double bottom pattern, then you can start working your way back into the wedge and back towards the trusty level at 44.5. That's what we need. We need to get back to 44.5. Get the breakout and start heading to higher levels, but it's going to depend on the wider market. Bitcoin cannot do this on its own. It needs the market to stay risk on for Bitcoin to have a rally. Now, the other option is for the market to start decoupling. What that means would be if currently you've got like an 80%, okay, so from a scale of -1 to 1, you've got a 0.8 correlation of Bitcoin to the S&P and the Nasdaq. That is crazy. Okay, that's a really tight correlation, and for that to decouple would take a lot. It would mean investors and buyers would really have to start treating Bitcoin as a hedge against the establishment. They have to change their narrative. Instead of it being a high growth stock for some quick yield and some high volatility, it have to be treated as anti-system, anti-money, like anti the establishment, to say this is my hedge against the current inflation. And that can happen, right? The risk Jerome Powell faces with increasing all these interest rates so quickly, he can trigger a recession in the economy. He's got this fine balancing seesaw where he wants to increase interest rates to reduce inflation. Can't do it too quickly because he can plunge the economy into recession. But on his side, he's saying the labor market is strong, earnings are coming out strong from companies, so I've got room to increase interest rates, and then if we need to, we'll slow down. That's what he's saying. We can always slow down later on. But once you trigger the economy into recession, it's too late, right? You can't recover it. If you overact, that's part of a problem. Once you've toasted the bread, it's done, right? It's burnt toast. So the challenge then is, okay, can Bitcoin then use that as a catalyst to decouple? Can it say, hang on, I'm going to stand on my own 2 feet. I'm not going to move like a risk on stock. People are going to flock across to Bitcoin because they realize that inflation is at a 40% high, 40-year high. It's crazy. It's at 8% annualized in first world countries. Fiat currency is not working, right? DeFi is where everything's at. This is the hedge, right? And therefore people start allocating a percentage of their funds across to Bitcoin. That's always been the premise around why Bitcoin has some of these crazy lofty goals. Anytime you see people explaining why they think Bitcoin can get to 100K or 200K or 1 million, they always start with the theory around how much market cap is tied into gold, how much is tied into the stock market, how much is tied into the real estate market. If we could take a percent of that and people start putting it into Bitcoin, there's not enough to go around, therefore really high price on Bitcoin. That's how it works. But when are we going to see that? When are we going to see that? Because at the moment, we're not seeing that. We're not seeing that big institutions and big hedge funds, bar a couple of examples we have said, I'm going to take 5% of my balance sheet, which is cash, and I'm going to put it into Bitcoin. We've not seen that yet. It's a good theory, and I believe in that theory long term, but it's not happening yet. When we get that, that is when we're going to get the decoupling. Instead, what we are seeing is that institutions and funds are going, when we want a high risk asset, no different to how we want to sometimes invest in growth stocks, we'll invest in Bitcoin at the same time. But when things get volatile, we're going to come out, we're going to go to our safe stocks, and we're going to come out of crypto. That's what we're seeing at the moment. That is why we've got such heavy correlation with Bitcoin. Now, what is FANTOM doing today? We've got FANTOM sitting flat as Bitcoin is sitting flat. And again, we're at this precarious point with FANTOM. We're sitting on this ledge, literally, which you can see across this kind of 116 level. We're at $1.11 today. If we zoom in, we can see that. And let's head on over to the 4-hourly. And you'll see that we're just kind of hovering here. Now, we've managed to hold a higher high than this level. Remember, I said if we go lower than 105, 106, that's a problem. But we've managed to hold some strength. We saw the buying come in at 108 this time. So this is good. But we need to see some momentum start working towards a higher high than this. See where we got rejected once and twice. This is 122. We need to get above 122 on the next push up so we can start building some momentum, because otherwise you can still argue the downside risk is still here. We're still in a bearish situation because we had a big move to the downside and it's just kind of gone horizontal. You need to start curling up to nullify the move to the downside. Really important that we see that. Now, what does that mean that I'm doing in the market? Well, obviously it's a difficult market. It's very red. It's very confusing. The fear and greed index has dropped back to 24 today. And now is a market where you just need to be patient. Sometimes need to do nothing, and sometimes that's where the magic is. Particularly, you do not want to panic sell. You don't want to always check the prices because that can confuse you in terms of your conviction. So sometimes just be like, okay, cool, I know what's happening. I know this is what's happening in terms of Jerome Powell spooking the markets. I know it doesn't really affect the fact that I think FANTOM is going to be a fantastic layer one solution, and they're doing some great things from a TVL perspective, and great projects are being built. And I've listened to the FANTOM CMO interview with Ijaz. Yep, links up here. Go watch that CMO interview. You definitely get a lot of conviction just from watching that to understand that this is a serious project, right? And the market palpitations and volatility shouldn't affect you. Instead, you should be working on building out your portfolio, having a strategy, saying these are the coins I want in my perfect portfolio. Get yourself ready for the next run to the upside. If you haven't seen a run, if you didn't see the run of Bitcoin initially to 64, or then the second run later, earlier in 2021 up to 69, close to 70,000, you're in for a surprise. Euphoria really does kick in. Greed really does kick in, and things start to move quickly. And that's why now is when you need to do the work. Now is when you need to lay the foundations. Now is when you need to get your portfolio set right. You start dollar cost averaging on some of your favorite projects. I know it feels horrible. I know the prices don't feel cheap right now because they've been there for a long time. But these are crazy prices. Just like people thought, oh, there'll always be a chance to get Bitcoin at 20. When? You're not getting another chance now. You'd sell your kidney to go buy Bitcoin at 20,000 now. And now slowly you're starting to see Bitcoin will never go back to 30. Then it will never get back to 35. And then soon 40 will be that next floor, and you start building from there. It's not about how high the price peaks up in a sudden peak and then come down. It's about what are those floors? Where do we never see the price of Bitcoin again? We never saw it at 1,000. Now we no longer see it at 5,000. Then we no longer saw it at 10,000. Then we no longer saw it at 20,000. Now, you'll be lucky to get Bitcoin at 30. Soon, the floor will be that you'll never see Bitcoin at 40 again. We need to remind ourselves of that, not just with Bitcoin, but some of our favorite coins. Right now, you're lucky enough to have a project like FANTOM at $1, right? You're lucky to be able to buy Solana at 100. This was at one point close to 200, right? You're lucky to have things like Algorand at 71 cents. Right? I'm looking at Luna 91. Remember when it was at 119 just a couple of weeks ago, people were FOMOing in. You got Ethereum under 3,000, right? Remember, this is the same Ethereum that people are saying when it gets to ETH 2.0, it's going to 10K. Bitcoin under 40,000. We need to remind ourselves of what the actions are and make sure we're buying not emotionally, but rationally, logically, to a plan. Get your post-it notes out. Post-it should be sponsoring me, but they're not. Get your post-it notes out, write them down. I'm a big believer in that. Stick them on your monitor and make sure you execute your strategy accordingly. If you've done that and you need some more cash, go figure out how to get more cash, right? That's part of the game as well. It's not about just fiddling around with your investments and trying to make, an extra couple of percent here. Go get more cash and invest more cash. Not financial advice. As always, guys, if you appreciate this blend of technicals and fundamentals all in one video, even on a weekend, smash up the like buttons. Don't forget to subscribe. As always, guys, these videos are brought to you by NordVPN. Links in the description. Make sure you're staying safe in crypto. Link to get yourself set up on a VPN. If you haven't done that already, guys, absolute no-brainer. $2 or $3 to get yourself set up on a VPN, and it's going to protect you. It's going to make sure your IP is masked. You can watch Netflix if you want to from different countries. You can stream games from different countries. But more importantly, on crypto, it means all your IP is masked, and it's the most basic of security you need to implement if you're serious about crypto. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.